Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to GNR Central. And I wanted to talk about the news today. So Slash gave an interview recently to French TV where he talked about the youth of today and some of the challenges they're facing, but he also talked about some of the younger rock and roll bands. So here's what he had to say about that topic.
The youth of America, or the youth of in general, has changed a lot. There was some angst in the 90s that was being expressed. I think that's gone. And so kids are having their issues, but it's not such a big unified thing that starts a movement. It's really become the digital age, and it seems like everybody's sort of focused on video games and their phones and their computers and all the stuff that you can do with all that. You know, it's hard to say where it's going to go or where we're headed, but I did notice that there's a lot of young bands coming out right now where kids are focused on at least something that has a certain kind of attitude to it, which I think is what rock and roll is all about. It's not necessarily the guitar style or the music. It's about a feeling of identity and about expressing yourself the way that you want to say it, not taking shit from anybody, not thinking about what other people think of you and all this whole other thing, and just being individuals.
Now, Slash recently gave a pretty broad-ranging interview to Louder.com. He talked about everything from Guns N' Roses to why he posts weird shit on his social media pages. So if you guys do follow him on social media, I don't actually follow Slash because his stuff is just too bizarre and weird and it's not safe for work. But he posts a lot of like horror stuff and nude stuff on his social media pages, really without much explanation a lot of the time. So the interviewer asked him, how do you find all the weird shit you post on Facebook? So he was taking fan questions basically and answering them. So that was one of the questions people asked. He said, he laughed at that question, said, I find it on Tumblr, Pinterest, or some weird site I come across. Horror and nudity are two of my favorite things. I do post some music stuff, but that's so predictable. So I post all the shit that I like that has nothing to do with anything that people necessarily know me for or associate me with. I've been producing horror movies as of late, so I guess it falls into that. He was also asked, if you could create dinosaurs from amber like in Jurassic Park, would you do it? He said, I'd be the first to do it, even though I know it would not be right and not be in the best interest of the animal. I'm very much an animal activist and a conservationist. I know that if I knew how to do it, I'd be compelled to do it. I wouldn't start with the T-Rex. I'd start with something small, something that could acclimate to the environment much easier, something like a compy. Now, one of my favorite questions was, what was the most disgusting thing you've ever got caught in your hair? So he said, Guns N' Roses opened for Social Distortion back in 1985 at the street scene. Social Distortion is one of my favorite bands of all time. And he said, which is a big street festival all through downtown Los Angeles. And we had a spitting contest with people in the audience and all that spit that is in your hair. That's a good one. It was a punk thing. We were kind of this rock and roll band that had a punk influence, but to a punk audience, we were still a rock and roll band. So if they decide to spit on us, we're going to spit on them. And it lasted for the whole show. He was also asked about how it feels to know that November Rain has been viewed 1 billion times on YouTube. He said it's surreal. It's something I don't know how to imagine that many people looking at one piece of film. I've got to give Axl a lot of credit because that epic video is something that he had basically his vision of doing. We were all like, yeah, whatever at this time because it just wasn't a simple shoot the song in a day type of thing. It was over a period of days and it was like a mini movie. He was really effing into it and they did a really good job with it. And for those big videos, I would write my own part and that turned out to be a major part of the whole thing. As much as I wasn't totally into the whole thing, the fact that it's become an iconic piece of video viewed by 1 billion people is pretty cool. He was also asked whether he's seen a ghost before. He said, I did when I was high. I saw a lot of them. With a clear mind, I don't recall ever seeing anything paranormal that I could communicate with. I think a lot of it was influenced by my chemical ingestion. My mom was very spiritual, and I've adopted a lot of that open-mindedness. I'm very open-minded, and a lot of that stuff makes perfect sense to me. He was also asked which Guns N' Roses solo he's most proud of. He said, the most fun I've had doing solos live is the improvised stuff because that's when you're flying by the seat of your pants, spontaneously going for something, and that's when it works into the most gratifying thing. As far as solos go, to stay true to, November Rain is a good one. It's a really powerful piece of that song, and I love playing Sweet Child of Mine solos still to this day. Playing the actual song when you first go into it, it comes into a certain place in the set where people react in such a huge way, it's almost like having sex. That interaction where it basically is a give and take thing that you can't not enjoy that, right? So if you guys want to see the rest of the questions that he was asked, I've put the link down below. You guys can go check it out. Let's go into our next news story. So turning now to some other Slash news. So Slash was interviewed by a Polish channel, and he talked a bit about Napster and how it's kind of ruined the music industry. and he supported Lars Ulrich's fight against the music sharing site. Now, he was also asked about whether he's tired of being one of the most recognizable musicians in the world. He said, I don't play the big rock star guy very well, and I'm not that guy. I just say, screw it, and I just want to play. And that's all I really focus on. I pretty much am playing all the time, and it's very much a passion thing for me. And all the other sort of stuff that comes with that, having arrived at any form of success, is irrelevant. I just don't do the celebrity thing. If people might want to try and see me in that kind of role, but it just basically doesn't stick. He also talked a bit about streaming platforms in the modern music industry, and he said back in the late 90s, early millennium, when everybody was doing the file sharing thing, the internet basically killed the music industry. Now we've sort of come out of it with streaming services, but they don't pay anywhere near the royalties that buying a CD or a record pays. It's definitely hurt the music business in a big way, and it's easier for customers, but it's definitely not doing any favors for the actual artists. He also discussed how he chose the members of his various bands. He said, I jam a lot and I do a lot of sessions, and you meet people and you remember people that you've played with, that you felt really comfortable playing with, or that you thought were really good. I've been doing this for a long time, so I know a lot of musicians, but for me personally, you're usually looking for people that have a natural gift for that sort of rock and roll feel. One of the great things about the Conspirators was that I didn't know any of them. I did not see it coming. I worked with Miles on my first solo record, and I'd never heard him sing before. I had heard a lot about him, and I called him up and asked if he wanted to sing on the solo record with all these different singers. He was amazing, so we ended up doing 2 songs together on that record. One was Starlight, and the other one was Back to Cali. Then I was like, I have to do a tour to support this record, and I can't bring all these different singers on the road with me. How would Miles like to do it? So I knew he had the kind of range that he could do all the different type of material, and then also the Velvet Revolver and Guns N' Roses songs, as well as the Snake Pit songs. When he agreed to do it, I had to go look for musicians for the actual band. I was introduced to Brent Fitz, who I'd never heard of before, and he was amazing. And at the time, I actually did have a bass player that I was working with. He was a really good musician, but he wasn't the right feel for what I was trying to do. And Brent goes, I know this guy named Todd Kearns that lives in Vegas. He's really good. And I couldn't have asked for a better bass player, and it just clicked. And that was the chance thing where the stars aligned and put me in contact with the right musicians without having me know anything about them. He also talked about his early days as a guitarist. He said, I had a lot of crisis with other people who were trying to get me to do something that I didn't want to do, or weren't agreeing with my dedication to the guitar because it was taking time away from other things. And I had a lot of that. I had a lot of people telling me to basically give up, and there was too many guitar players. But I never got bored with it myself, and that's probably how I all got through it. He also talked a bit about his work ethic and how he's basically a workaholic. He said, everybody calls me a workaholic, and I think it's just really that I love what I do. And in order to be able to do that, you have to do it all the time. You just can't sort of hang around. I mean, some people do that, but I'm not like that. I'm like, I want to make a new record. I want to go out on the road, and I want to make another record, and I want to go back out on the road again. Now, maybe it's a workaholic thing, but I love jamming, and I love playing. He also talked a bit about people who wear band shirts whose music they don't really know. He said the funny thing to me is that all the kids wear CBGB shirts that have no idea what CBGB is. In a way, it's sort of carrying the torch. It might be fashionable to some and maybe have some sort of statement, but in a way it keeps the brand alive, so it's cool. You really can't get angry with people because they're wearing a t-shirt that looks cool and they have no idea what the band is on it. Now, with Slash on tour throughout Europe right now, he's been releasing a couple videos on his YouTube and his social media channels. There's 2 new videos, at least that I've seen recently, where you can see some cool behind-the-scenes action of what goes on backstage with the band, and just them goofing around and stuff like that and getting set up for the gigs. You guys can go to Slash's YouTube page and check them out, and they're pretty much set to some songs off of his latest record. Now, this year also marked the 3-year anniversary. It was this week, or I think it was last week, that it was 3 years ago that Guns N' Roses legendary keyboardist Chris Pitman was apparently fired from the band. So if you guys remember, on March 3rd, 2016, Hall of Fame keyboardist and towel-waving enthusiast Chris Pitman apparently apologized to Guns N' Roses for basically drunk tweeting his displeasure with what he called a nostalgia and cash-grabbing tour. Now, shortly after his apology on social media, he exited the band. Whether he was fired or he left on his own seems pretty unclear, but the consensus is that he was fired. Now, he basically posted an apology saying, I sincerely apologize to GNR, especially the band and the crew, for stupid comments about the upcoming tour. Remember, kids don't drink and text. And then not too long after this incident happened, he ended up suing Axl for not being paid for some of the work that he had done, and then they ended up settling out of court. It was rumored that they settled for about $130,000 US or so for 2 years of unpaid work. We got some news for you Queen fans. So hot off the heels off of their Oscar wins for their biopic of Freddie Mercury, Bohemian Rhapsody, it looks like there's going to be a new Queen documentary released this April on ABC. So according to the press release that went out, at least on blabbermouth.com, Lincoln Square Productions has acquired the U.S. television rights to a documentary from Miracle Productions of the iconic band and their new regular frontman Adam Lambert. So produced by Jim Beach and acclaimed writer and filmmaker Simon Lupton, The Show Must Go On, Queen plus Adam Lambert's story will air on Monday, April 29th on ABC Television Network prior to Queen and Lambert's already sold out July and August 2019 US Rhapsody tour. So it's going to feature rare concert footage and exclusive revealing portraits of the band members off stage. The Show Must Go On will chronicle Queen and Lambert's incredible journey since they first shared the stage together on American Idol in 2009, and from his humble beginnings to his meteoric rise on reality TV to now standing center stage as the lead singer of Queen and Adam Lambert. The documentary also features new interviews with Lambert, his parents, and Queen founding members Brian May and Roger Taylor, as well as American Idol judges Simon Cowell and Golden Globe and Oscar winner for Best Actor Rami Malek, as well as Foo Fighters' Taylor Hawkins. So that does it for today's news story, guys. Go check out my video from earlier today about the marquee shows. There's some new interview footage you guys probably haven't seen before, as well as some snippets of some of the podcasts we've done over the last year and a half. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit the like button and be sure to subscribe, and go check us out at gnrcentral.com. Take care.
Hey, this is Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses, and you're watching GNR Central. Yeah!